Hi everyone, welcome to another digital class here at basicgrey.com. For this week's digital class, we're going to be using the Mellow Starter Kit, mostly the papers and then also a little tree element. But the main focus of this class is on how to create a grid layout. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time showing you how to do that, and then also how you can fill that in with all your patterns once you have your grid pattern made. So this is my final page. I'm going to go ahead and minimize it so it's out of the way. Put it off to the side as usual. I'm going to start out by opening a new document, a new blank file. And it, it needs to be in inches, and it needs to be 12 by 12 and 300 pixels per inch. Okay, so here's our new document. And in order to make these grids, they're going to be 2 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to create another new document. And this time I'm going to make it 2 by 2 at 300. And then I'm going to get my paint bucket tool. I'm going to change this to black, and I'll just make them black. Minimize that. Okay. In order to help us build this kind of grid pattern, a grid layout, we're going to turn on a couple different settings within Photoshop Elements. I'm using Photoshop Elements 8. I'm not sure if these features are in previous versions of Photoshop, and I would assume that they're still there in the new Photoshop Elements 9, but I'm just going to show you where they are in 8. Come up to View and select Rulers, and that just turns on the rulers on the document we're working in. And then once you have your ruler on, you can start putting in some guides. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for us here. Okay, you'll notice that up here you've got the ruler, and the 0 starts at the edge of the page, and it's like that on both vertically and horizontally. And when you click and drag from the ruler, it brings down a line, a guide. And we want the top one to come down to 3/4 of an inch. Should be right there. And then we want another one to come down, and it needs to be at 11 1/4. So it's even on both sides, or top and bottom. Then I'm going to bring another guide in, and it's going to be at 1/2 inch up at the top. And the other one is going to be at 11. It's slightly shifted to the left. Okay, so I'm going to minimize that just a little bit, and now I'm going to start bringing in this box. So with the Move tool selected, I'm just going to click and drag it over here. Okay, I'm going to make this larger again just so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to bring this one all the way up to that guide. And if you have View Snap to Guides, make sure that's on. It usually comes on by default when you start using a guide. You'll notice that when I kind of move up here, it kind of snaps into place right up next to that guide, and that's what we want. Holding down the Alt key, which is going to duplicate the shape, I'm going to click and drag while I hold down the Shift key, which only allows it to move horizontally, or if I want it to move vertically, it would move vertically. So even though I'm, moving my cursor back and forth, it's only going either exactly vertically or exactly horizontally. So I'm duplicating that once. I'm going to hold down my Alt and Shift keys again and duplicate it again and again and again. And this last one, I'm going to let it snap to that guide over on the side. Okay, now I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to select each one of these shapes. While you're doing this, if it's not selecting the shapes, make sure you have the Auto Select Layer option clicked on. So I've got all 5 boxes selected. I'm going to come up here to Distribute, and I'm going to select Horizontal Centers. And that just evenly distributes all of the shapes. Okay, I'm going to do something similar, except I'm going to drag them vertically. I'm going to have them come down. And once again, there's going to be 5 squares and have a snap to the bottom. Then I will have it distribute them all vertical centers. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to select these bottom 4, and holding down the Alt key, I'm just going to move it over, and it will snap in place directly underneath that column. Photoshop is pretty smart that way. Oh. Photoshop is pretty smart that way, and it'll do it on its own. Okay, so now we've got our main grid that we want here. Except you'll notice up here in the final layout, I've got it all the way across the bottom and then this larger one right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each one of these and delete them as they go across. And then I can select the first column square and drag the edge all the way over to the other side. And it's perfect. So I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll delete that, come to the one right above, and snap it in place. Okay, so here's our main grid. We're going to do one other thing to help us get our pattern in there, or our layout in there just perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the guides. And I'm also going to turn off the ruler because we don't need that at this point. And I'm going to come over here to my rectangle tool. I'm going to change the color just to something different. How about just to like a light gray? And with the background selected, so it's going to go on the bottom layer, I'm going to come in here and just draw a shape around this area. Looks about right. Okay, I'm also going to draw another shape, and this time I'm going to use the rounded rectangle tool. I'm going to come up to the top layer, and I'm going to draw another shape in with that rounded rectangle tool. I'm just going to start from that one side and have it just kind of come about right there. I'll get my move tool and I can use my arrow keys to kind of nudge that down. Okay, so we've got our basic template for our layout. Now I'm going to show you how to drag and drop in the patterns and photos. Okay, so I've got all of my photos here. These are just some black and white photos of my nieces and nephews. And the way you can drag and drop them in, it's just like using any of the templates you can purchase at basicgrey.com, except this time we've created our own template. Okay, I'm going to come to the document, and using the move tool, I'm going to go ahead and select this shape right here. That's the one we're going to drop the photo in. And I'm going to come and select this photo of Adam, and I'm going to click and drag and just drop in there. And then immediately I'm going to use my keyboard and do Command G or Control G if you're on a PC. And that just snaps that photo into the layer below. This is called a clipping mask. It just kind of drops the photo into the layer that's directly below it. And then you can use your arrows on the corners to resize that photo and like move it around. Okay, that's about what I want, so I'm going to hit the green check mark. Now I'm going to fill the next one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come get this photo of Kate. I'm going to come and drop it in. Immediately do Command G to create a clipping mask and drop that into the square below. And then I'm going to size down the photo and get it to the right size. Check mark and lock that in. I'm going to go ahead and do that to the rest of the photos right now.